third, fourth, and fifth grade, I think it's cool. Very-
I would think so.
Mine has hand notes on it as yours. I just want to make sure I don't have
Oh,
somebody's.
yeah, no, mine is writing.
It's okay. As an only child, I'm.
You are?
No, she didn't send it.
I'll come over there. You want me to come over?
No,
You go all by yourself?
I'm all good.
Are you good?
We'll find out in a minute. Yes. Yep, got it.
Just in time.
I'm just texting Kathy and Andrea to tell them they have the night off. Zoom is a pain right now, and they're
Okay.
going to zoom in, so we're just not zooming.
Okay. Is this?
That's I made copies of.
Oh,
so
you're
you're good.
Okay.
Was that Damien to the rescue?
Yes. I was like, printed all this stuff out before the meeting, and then I realized I didn't print out my remarks, so he just emailed it to me.
You should have OneDrive on your phone.
It'll teach me so many things.
Absolutely.
It's being ridiculous. So I just told Andrea and Kathy they have the night off. No?
It's 7:04. We'll call the Thursday, March 21st, 2024 Board of Education meeting to order. Has everyone had a chance to review the agenda? Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Pam. Is there a
Second.
second? Thank you, Nicola. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Public comment. The board has set aside time at the beginning and end of regular meetings for public comments for members of the public to share their views on matters involving the Wilton Public Schools and to help inform the board's decisions on such matters. 2 minutes will be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 15 minutes to any one subject. For the record, please also give your name and address. The board considers the views of citizens in its deliberations and welcomes and appreciates public comment. The board listens to public comment thoughtfully and with interest. The board, however, generally does not respond to public comment during board meetings by offering commentary or answering questions. The board also invites commentators and the public to contact the board or the superintendent directly with any specific questions or comments. The board, through the chair and the superintendent, may respond to questions and comments offered during public comment or shared directly. And in responding, may also direct members of the public to appropriate staff members for a response. Are there comments from the public? Hearing none, moving on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lori and Pam. Is all in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Board Chair's report. To apologize, I'm reading tonight. I forgot my printout. Just a few remarks. Last night, the Board of Education presented its budget to the Board of Finance and the town. A video is available through the Board of Finance webpage on the town website under meeting minutes. The presentation discusses our district's mission and values, excellent results, and budget priorities and goals. There is also a specific discussion of the drivers behind the 4.88 request and how the request allows the district to restore essential programs affected by previous years of budget reductions, such as clubs and activities, maintain current staff and programs, and accomplish our educational commitments, all while managing rising costs. It is crucial that members of the community make their thoughts known to the Board of Finance. Please complete the Board of Finance survey, also available at the Board of Finance webpage, and write to the Board of Finance at boardoffinance@wiltonct.org. The Board of Finance is meeting tomorrow at 3 p.m. on Zoom only, and then begins budget deliberations on April 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, in person at 7:30 at Comstock and on Zoom. Public comment is available at all meetings. Board of Finance budget deliberations culminate with a vote and a budget recommendation, mill rate recommendation, to the annual town meeting. The town meeting's on May 7th with adjourned voting on May 11th. The Board of Finance recommendation can only be lowered at the town meeting for voting. I'd also like to congratulate Middlebrook on their exceptional performance at the Connecticut State Science and Engineering Fair finals this year. Middlebrook was awarded the Perpetual Award for sustained commitment to student participation in science fairs and supporting the next generation of STEM leaders. Congratulations. I'm also going to take a minute to congratulate some of the individual winners. Congratulations to Kinnear Baskar, who won the Connecticut Science Fair Association Physical Science Award, 5th place overall for 7th grade in Connecticut. Congratulations to Ashan Chung and for taking home the middle school's special award from the Office of Naval Research, U.S. Navy, and U.S. Marine Corps. Congratulations to Kabir Rokam and Shrishrath Balaj for taking home 4 awards. Connecticut Science Fair Association Life Science Award, 1st place overall for 7th grade team. Environmental Sciences Award, 1st place overall for 7th grade in Connecticut. And the Alexion Biotechnology Award, 2nd place overall for 7th grade in Connecticut. They were also nominated to compete in the Thermo Fisher Scientific Junior Innovations Challenge. Congratulations to Arav Gupta and Gopita Kamal for winning the Connecticut Science Fair Association Life Science Award, 3rd place 8th grade team. And congratulations to Jackson Norfolk for winning 4 awards. The Pfizer Computational Biology and Bioinformatics Award, 2nd place overall in Connecticut. Connecticut Science Fair Association Physical Science Award, 4th place overall for 8th grade. The Infosys Foundation Computer Science Award, 3rd place overall in Connecticut. And the Alexion Biotechnology Award, Connecticut Science Fair Medallion winner. Congratulations to all the Middlebrook Science Fair participants. I was able to spend some time at the fair this year, and your entries were all truly extraordinary and inspiring. Thank you, parents, teachers, and staff, for your guidance and dedication. Well done. Also this Friday, I had the honor of joining Genesis and Ambler Farm for a pancake and Genesis syrup breakfast in celebration of their amazing partnership this winter. Other board members and community members were able to attend as well. Thanks to a grant from the Wilton Education Foundation and other generous donors, 26 Genesis students participated in a hands-on maple syrup producing project, from tapping trees to bottling. The end product was not only delicious, but from student and teacher testimonials, also academically and socially rewarding and enriching. The learning, community building, and pride were evident on the smiles of everyone's faces. Thank you for inviting and sharing with us.
Great.
Yes.
Let's add to that congratulations. So I've some list of congratulations, a couple of updates, and then I have a serious matter I want to put on the table for the board. So since we last met, we also received the announcements for the Connecticut PTA Reflections results. And so, building off of Ruth's announcement, at the high school, check this out. So, Finley Kyer, photography, 1st place. Ekaterina Felina, film production, 1st place. Arnav Pandy, music composition, first place. Ilya Pascalides, literature, first place. Caitlin Valerie, visual arts, second place. Middlebrook, Dylan Pamnani, photography, first place. Magnolia Tesler, special artist, first place. Jaya Praveen, film production, second place. At Cider Mill, Sloka Adalori, literature, first place. Ellie Wong, music composition, second place. Charlotte Gamel, dance choreography, third place. And at Miller Driscoll, Drudy Patel, literature, first place. Ajay Krishna Prem Kumar, visual arts, second place. And Graydon Tesler, film production, fourth place. So amazing showing at the PTA Reflections. All of those first place winners will go on and represent Connecticut. I don't know if we announced it here at the table, but we also learned in the last few weeks that our 10 National Merit semifinalists are now 10 National Merit finalists. So congratulations to all of them, and we look forward to more great success. Every day is amazing around our schools. Today was especially so. Folks all across the district participated in Crazy Sock Day to recognize, right? Do you want to tell us why you have some crazy socks on today, Ms. Coleman?
Well, I have my craziest socks on today in honor of World Down Syndrome Day, so we're celebrating differences and the special things in all of us.
Yeah, amazing. So thank you. And so there were crazy socks everywhere across the district today. We also celebrated Women in History over at Miller Driscoll. And Kathy was supposed to be online tonight, but I couldn't figure out Zoom, so she gets the night off. We had 50 parent volunteers who were at the school today, dressed up, representing a host of women from across history, engaging in read-alouds across the school. It was awesome, and so I just want to say thank you to our whole parent community. It was really a really special day. That's the largest crowd that I remember in some time, and so hopefully we'll continue to build off that, and that'll just get bigger and better as time goes on. Today, in partnership with the League of Women Voters, the high school held a voter registration drive that was also very successful. And so we had a number of notable folks in. Spent some time with Stephanie Thomas, who is our Connecticut Secretary of State. I understand our first selectman was by, and we ended the day with Kim Healy, who also serves on our Board of Selectmen. So it was nice to have so many notable representatives coming by and supporting our students as they were trying to get the voter out. So just to shift gears to a much more serious topic for a few minutes here, I'm going to ask the board to schedule a special meeting next week, Thursday the 4th, and we can look at the time, 6:37. And I want to use that time to engage in a conversation about race and equity and inclusion. And so at the end of last week, there were a number of incidents that were brought to my attention here at the high school, across some of our lower schools, and there have been incidents across the year where students are using the N-word. We had a report of some graffiti on one of the storage containers out by the baseball field at the end of last week, where again a student, excuse me, I shouldn't say a student, we don't know who the person was, but there was some hateful graffiti. There was the N-word and I guess a swastika. And we can look at these as isolated incidents, or we can step back from the number of incidents and we can just identify that there's a pattern of behavior here that's really intolerable. And I think that's the approach that we have to take. I know that we are a community filled with good, caring people. I also know we're a community filled with young people who are learning the way and get a lot of information. And as a school community, I think we have an opportunity to lean into this moment and to bring some people forward, to hear some stories, and to do some different kind of training and support with our students and with our staff to raise these issues and to better live up to our values. I think one of the fundamental concerns for me in hearing some of these stories, I know we have students of color in this building and across our other schools who, in many cases don't feel welcome here, and in the worst cases feel unsafe here. And that is not the kind of environment that we can endorse, foster, or support. And so recognizing that, we have to do more. And I think, beginning with this group at the board table, our administrators have been, actively thinking about that. I know many of our teachers have too, but I think we can revisit a lot of these issues, look at some of the practices we currently have in place, some of the work we've done, bring back some additional external supports that we've had in the past, and just take these concerns on and do it in a transparent way. So what I'm thinking is, we'll set up the 4th as an informal workshop, and I'll work with the administrators. I think it'd be important if we have people who are interested to share some stories to come in and share some stories, and then we can talk with some staff and some of our administrators about what's in place and what the next steps are. So I want to name that for folks. I've been drafting a letter this week that I'll share with the entire school community just to talk about kind of what the concerns are today. And what our more immediate plans are. That'll go out. I had hoped that it would go out before today, but I'll have it ready to go by tomorrow. Okay, and then we'll just we'll take this on, and I think really the framework that we need to focus on is one of prevention. What are the educational programs that we can engage in here in our schools, as well as supporting our families at home to really teach kids about appropriate language and sensitivity and those kinds of things. And then our response, when it happens, what do we do and how do we respond? How do we just make what our values and expectations are very clear, and then how do we engage with students who violate those norms, as well as support the students who are victimized. So thank you for that, and more to come.
Thank you.
I'm all set. I don't have anything else.
Okay. Committee reports. Was there a committee
No.
meeting? Financial report. Wait, welcome to the table.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So in the portal, you guys have the financial report. The biggest things, obviously, are we're continuing to watch the numbers closely. We did institute the budget freeze at the beginning of February. We received our first installment of the excess cost reimbursement, and as previously communicated, the amount was less than what was originally projected from the state. We received a little over $818,000. We're anticipating that the second payment will be just under $200,000, so the budget projection adjustment we made in January is on target for where we're anticipating the final amount will be. The cleanup and work in the gym at Cider Mills continuing. They finished with the cleanup. They're starting with painting this week. We're anticipating that our share is going to be about $30,000 of what the rough estimate was about $285,000 total for all of the repairs. That the $30,000 includes the deductible and some additional costs that we're going to end up incurring that the insurance doesn't cover. And then just as a reminder, in the fall, obviously, we had the emergency repairs for the flooring issues at Cider Mill and Middlebrook, which were about $157,000. We've been keeping a close eye on our substitute usage and on the electricity costs. We're projecting right now that we may be about $150,000 short in the substitute line, so you'll see in the financial report that we made some adjustments on some of the other lines to keep us within the budget. And then because of freeze that we have in place and that we're really monitoring what's going out, we believe that we're still going to be within the overall budgeted appropriation for the fiscal year.
Is within the overall appropriation minus the 157, is that going to be an outside request?
That'll be
Okay.
a request of the Board of Finance to use charter authority.
Okay. Any questions for Leila?
Just on the so we had a $10,000 deductible on the Cider Mills
Yep.
gym floor, right?
Yes. Yeah, we have a $10,000 deductible. The insurance does not cover painting the ceiling, but if we're painting everything else in the gym, then
Okay.
we should paint the ceiling as well. And then we made a decision, instead of replacing the wood floor, to go with the other type of flooring that we have in the other gym, which is slightly more expensive, but we were able to negotiate with the insurance company. The original bid that we had was a lot higher than the company that we used previously for the flooring at the other gym floor at Cider Mill. So they agreed that they would pay the cost of the wood floor, and then we're just paying what the difference is. So it's a much smaller amount than what was originally thought. So we decided that made more sense, because those floors are much more durable, they'll last longer, and the upkeep and maintenance is much less.
Yeah, I think you had asked me that question a while ago. So to strip and re-wax a floor is about $8,000. We do that every other year. So figure a 25-year floor, more eclipses in
And
savings.
it's about $9,000 more to put the other floor down. So in 1 year, we've recouped that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think once it's done, it'll be a brand new space. We're going to actually have to change the names, because we used to colloquially refer to it as the old gym, and now the old gym is going to be the
Have,
state-of-the-art gym.
A new
Right.
gym and a new gym?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, good job to that team. That was a lot of work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, there was
Thank you.
Jose Figueroa and his team, and
Yeah.
Lila, Dawn, for just working with the insurance company. Yeah, it's been great.
I'm sure work around Cider Mill, reusing space because you're down a gym. So, thanks.
Can you just remind me, someone, about what's the driver of the increased substitute line?
I don't know that there's a single driver, because our usage is not out of line with previous years. We have maternity leaves this year.
I have one, I just want to note, one of our positions that remained unfilled
Yes.
this year has been filled by a substitute for the entire year. So that's a salary that we didn't pay, and it's just coming out of a different budget line.
Right.
So that's, I think, one major difference, but otherwise, and of course, we have other long-term absences that we don't always plan for that require a different rate of pay because people are in positions for longer. But that's one major difference, and I think that should also be reassuring to you, because we have more than another line that wasn't paid out at a much higher rate.
Thanks, Maria.
Any other questions? Okay. Moving right along to review and discuss Portrait of a Graduate update. Portfolios. This is so exciting.
Great. So we'll turn it over to Mrs. Kampar, but Fran is here with Dr. Amy Korn, and we have half a dozen of our high school seniors who Fran's going to just give an update on some of the work we've done this year, and then what we're going to do is get up from the table, invite people. We'll take about 20 minutes to go back. You won't have time to talk to everybody, but grab a table, and we're going to ask our students just to walk you through the portfolio. Folks who are sitting in the audience, we'd invite you to do the same thing. So if you're interested in looking at the portfolios, get up, you can gather around the table, and the kids will talk you through what they've produced, and just make those connections to their work and the Portrait of a Graduate. Do you want to kick us off?
So thank you, and I'm going to make this brief so we can get to the really important part of tonight. So this is our update on Portrait of the Graduate. We continue to do great work in getting the Portrait of the Graduate to actually be part of the culture, be part of the school, be part of what we all do. It has not been one of those things that we have a implementation that is, quick, and you'll see from the timeline. It's taking a little bit longer, but I think it's actually a good thing, because what ends up happening is it becomes part of who we are. So we'll go on to the next, the major highlights for tonight. I'm just gonna review the implementation timeline. Some of the recommendations that came out of Tri-State, which was the visit we had at the end of last year, where we had all those folks from Tri-State come in and take a look at how we were doing with implementing Portrait of the Graduate. They gave us some really great feedback, and we're going to take a look at some of the things that we have actually made some progress towards. We're going to talk about the design task force that we put into place, some integration opportunities, what I call the I can statements, and then we'll get to the e-portfolios with our gallery one. So just to review where we are and where we've been over the last, now we're going on 6 years, we've done a lot of work. We've basically had a group of folks come together and really kind of discover and uncover the fact that we needed something like the portrait to actually be our North Star, and we came up with the portrait. We had you all, the Board of Education, when we adopted in 2021. And then over the last couple of years, we've gone from creating a lot of the graphics you'll see, including the little ones that have to do with the attributes, to the bigger ones, to basically make it more like an identity and branding in a sense, right? The marketing folks know this. And we've now begun embedding it directly into our learning experiences through curriculum review processes, through curriculum development over the summer. We've now really been talking about it as part of our teacher evaluation plan, and it's becoming part of a lot of different angles. And I'm going to go on to the next slide because we are now, I just wanted to kind of review this because as you're going through the gallery walk, you'll hear the students talk about the different attributes. They set up their e-portfolios to reflect the 6 attributes of the portrait of the graduate. So just as a reminder, what we have is really the scholar, or the contemporary multi-literate scholar. We talk about that, we're actually talking about contemporary and classic literacies. That's really important because we didn't really just look at the typical traditional literacies that we all know, but we're also looking at multimedia, different means of expression, and of course, different languages. Active socially sensitive citizen includes the relationship building, respect, kindness, and stewardship towards the environment. One of my favorites is the self-navigating expert learner, which the students all really have demonstrated by creating these e-portfolios, because not only does it take critical thinking and knowing how to learn and being flexible, but it takes reflection, self-reflection, right? So as you're doing the e-portfolios, you're also thinking about, why am I choosing this? Why is it important to me? It's more about the process than the product. Leadership is important, but we also basically we focus on leadership as being, risk-taking, empathy, collaborating. It doesn't necessarily mean being the leader of a club or the leader of something, which is, something that we also teach too. The creative entrepreneurial designer, one of my other favorites, is really about that curiosity, inventiveness, and innovation. And finally, very important, a healthy, balanced human being, demonstrating responsibility, balance, and compassion. Favorite words: happiness, humor, and sense of awe. So just to review some of the bigger recommendations from Tri-State. The first actually was to convene a design task force that would oversee the development of the plan, advise, and ensure the implementation was successful. They really weren't looking at us doing it in 1 year. This is something that is established as a multi-year effort. They also looked at the portrait of the graduate, and this was interesting. Ask the question, is this relevant enough to your youngest learners, right? So is portrait of a learner a better way to go than portrait of the graduate? So that was a question that came up and that we needed to consider. They also said that we needed to increase how we communicate with stakeholders, all stakeholders, that we include portrait of the graduate in everything that we do, and finally to continue developing the successful high school portfolios, which I know that these folks will be able to tell you a little bit more about, and also consider broadening it out to transition years, to have a portfolio like in grade 2. So at the end of the experience at Miller Driscoll, end of the experience at Southern Hill, in grade 8, and then that would lead up to what they do at the high school. So we have now had, we're going on 3 meetings with our portrait of the graduate design task force. We developed a charge for ourselves in terms of serving as a steering committee, and developing those short and long-term plans. We are going to look at a shared understanding of innovation, which was one of the Tri-State recommendations. And we're going to actually hone in a little bit more on the specific measures, and look at some of the tools and resources that we have that I'll talk a little bit more about. So one of the ways that we're making the language more accessible to all learners is that we're developing and actually codifying and finishing up our ICANN statements at our next meeting, which is actually May 1st. These statements are in, if you can click on, I don't know whether it'll go there, Amy, but if you just click on the first one, the active socially sensitive citizens, see if it actually goes in there. Perhaps? No. Okay, I can explain it. That's okay, no worries. So basically what this is they're ICANN statements that go along with each of the attributes, and they span the Miller Driscoll Cider Mill all up to the high school. And each of the criteria that's in there reflects what that attribute means, and then the language is in student-friendly language for that grade level. And each of these are actually really very complete. They're detailed, and you can kind of lift them and use them as learning targets. So teachers have begun doing that, actually. I've been seeing some of this in some of the units that are being written. And as we continue and we codify them, I think this is going to happen even more. We're also going to talk at our next meeting about the possibility of adopting Portrait of a Learner for pre-K-8. Portrait of the Graduate works really well at the high school because everybody's thinking they're graduating. But it's harder to do that when you're, in first or second grade, thinking in terms of graduation. So we're really going to see if we can actually make that switch. Our pre-K-5 folks have already taken the actual graphic and have, made some little changes so that it is actually much more accessible. This is an example of Cider Mills. We love it, so I thought that I'd share it. Okay. All right, now, what you've been reading. So the portfolio is a compilation of academic work, accomplishments, and evidence. It's being used at the high school as part of their graduation requirement. It's their high school capstone. In 9th grade, all students basically put together the template and the makings of that e-portfolio you're going to see through a Google site, and they continue adding to it throughout their journey in high school. And like I said, the most important part of this is the self-reflection. So before I go on to the students, I want to take a moment to recognize all the folks that have been behind this at the high school. Of course, our building leadership, the teachers, staff, folks like Scott Durkee, who do quite a bit of the work behind the scenes, and I would be absolutely remiss if I didn't recognize Dr. Amy Korn, who has been instrumental in moving this forward, and all the students that have been taking part of this. So thanks to all of them, we have a model that we can improve upon at the high school and also emulate in the other schools. So thank you. And now I wanted to introduce you to the students you're going to meet. So they're going to just kind of like raise their hands so that you'll know who they are. So we've got Bella. I'm going to say this wrong, right? Bella Sarah. Okay. Grace Younga. Sean Gregory. Nina Rutherford. Quinn Silva. And Danielle Westgate. These students have taken their time to be here with us, and thank you so much for being here. We are going to do this little gallery walk where we're inviting all of the Board of Ed members to pick one or two, because we're going to do this for about 10 minutes only, and go to the tables. The students will share their e-portfolios with you. You may ask questions. They can tell you about their biggest learning or takeaways from it, and show you what they have done. And take a table, because you're not going to have a lot of time to go through all of them, so maybe just split up two at each of the tables, and then we see whether you have time to do more.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
That's great.
In time?
Take about 15.
Okay.
Thanks.
This is it, I have 2 babysitters up there.
Oh, right out. Maybe that'll be in the portfolio.
This is really jarring. A lot of
lot of students identify themselves as intelligent, but when asked if perfection is intelligent, it's really large amount of thought. So this was just a very generic example of and you know, I'll try and talk about it. This is I don't find that good, and I ended up presenting it to Dr. Dodd. Kind of look for solutions among both students and kind of practice problems. How can we improve it? It does go in a way that usually so that was once another one of my this is a fun part where so we had a math project where the teacher was give us math and calculator program. That's it's just a calculator you get into data. It says pitch animation. So what I sought out to do was an innovation eventually will lead to snowballs forming on the top of the mountains and thank you very much. Some of my classmates were one of my friends made an interactive game on this, and another one of my friends made Minecraft on the project. So really cool stuff, and I can show you some of it. So this is all of this so it's just all this stuff that it was really cool, and at the end I really interested I kind of did my part one of our very first projects, how do you are so I said, no, I can't slide it out. So I ended up writing not to put it that's really cool. This is not to place it. So essentially, I just represented it as my life, as a population, how I feel about myself. It's really cool and it affects my portfolio. I thought it was how can I invite otherwise, well, that's yeah. Also, So I started my own organization. Students, that was what I started. Eventually expanded statewide on how I organized a policy roundtable where city members and youth came down I taught my well, thank I'm not sure yet. Yeah, I think that is well, so I've done a lot of research. So I think it's that gap there, connecting,
Hey folks, 2-minute warning. 2-minute warning.
Great job.
Right? Not impressive in the least, I know. Jeez. They're amazing.
Okay, so we didn't even have computers.
Right, it's a little different. Yeah.
I know it is like
Great. So, seniors, before we let you go, you have the whole Board of Ed here back at a table. Is there anything that you want them to know about this process? I heard some good recommendations as we were chatting individually, but the floor is yours for the next minute, and then we're going to turn it around, and if board members, you have questions for them, we'll go ahead and take a minute to ask some questions and put them on the spot.
I think I really enjoyed making my portrait of the graduate because it helped me to recognize how much I've grown throughout my high school years and everything I've learned.
Thank you for saying that. Great.
I was suggesting like maybe some more time, like maybe like an hour walk like in the day, like just once a week. This is portrait graduate day, and you can do it now because like it just made us have more time to do stuff today. And yeah, I guess yeah, I like the project a lot. And just be careful, like it can be kind of overwhelming, like consuming it like pictures of your little portrait graduate but it's just
Yeah, thank you for that. So one of the other themes that came up when we were in one of our design task force meetings was around creating time and space so they can actually do a more structured reflection because as you know, it was just you heard, they learn about themselves, right, as they're going through, and oftentimes like, I didn't know I could do so many things. And so I know the high school team has been taking that feedback from the students very seriously and working on some scheduling changes as we go forward. Anything else from our seniors?
definitely not really overwhelming. This project is very large and it's definitely overwhelming. I think having an example or even using one of our portfolios as an example for our that would definitely be more helpful because we're kind of just individual tasks. But overall, the instructions were very clear. I definitely knew what was expected.
Great. Go.
Yeah, I would just like to emphasize the self-reflection part. So I mean, yes, the project is vast, but I think that's the most crucial aspect of it, in that you all reflecting on your experience, both as a person, but also as a both in high schooler, and recognizing so many different things. Again, I can speak on this behalf of, as a senior going through the college applications process, where you're continuously asked to reflect upon yourself and all the different potentially divergent experiences or interests you have, and put that together as to who you are as a person. I think the e-portfolio is a really good job, one, encouraging that sort of self-reflection that you may not see within normal classroom settings, but two, actually encouraging an individual to see, now that you've done this self-reflection, how can that shape what your goals are, what your aspirations are, even what your hobbies are in the future. I think that's the main aspect of a portrait of a graduate that's so crucial to implement, in that it encourages self-reflection, and it encourages pointing that self-reflection and that introspection towards the future in a way that, at least in my experience, no other classroom experience has really been able to do.
Beautifully said.
I also think like maybe even as an incentive, you could tell freshmen that they can submit the e-portfolio to colleges. It was personally what I did, and it was very helpful in the college application process. It honestly just helped everything feel less so much. Complicated process is a lot.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Because we heard some mixed feedback about the relationship between the portfolios and college applications. That's great. That's great to hear. Good. Final word, and I'm going to ask if our board's got questions while you guys are here, and then we're gonna turn you loose.
Did you find did you find that maybe you went halfway down or started the process and then went, oops, I have to rethink this, or I don't like what I'm doing right now, or that's not me, or I haven't thought enough about it? I mean, was there a point where you had to sort of go in reverse a little bit, and think about it a little bit more? Or were you just gung-ho, you went straight in?
Yeah, go.
So I definitely had to rethink my portfolio a little bit because I started it in flight class during my freshman year, and then I joined Link Crew, which took me out of advisory, which is a lot of times we worked on our portfolios. So I didn't necessarily start looking at it until the summer coming into this school year, and I opened my portfolio and I was kind of like, oh yeah, I need to kind of redo a little bit of this because I changed so much from my freshman year, and the attributes were also a little bit different, so I think there were just some changes made, so I definitely had to edit some of the things that I did.
Great, thank you. Anyone else want to weigh in? Great. Other questions?
I
Yeah.
just wanted to say that I agree with grades, and I think that if we were to introduce this to young children, it would have to be in a very careful manner, as setting this as a standard may not be equitable for all students.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great point.
So I think that was kind of one of my questions. I was wondering if you kind of, having it introduced to you the idea your freshman year, if it kind of lend itself to how you thought about what classes you took or what projects you took on, or if you thought to yourself about like how you would maybe chart a path for yourself like through high school, like what you would maybe want to see when you were done. If like, I don't know what, I know it's like this is new, you know, so I'm just curious if you think that, you know, as it gets more embedded into school and school choices and kind of understanding your journey through school, if it makes those connections or has that impact for you. When you were going back through it, did it maybe help you think or think about like future, like aspirationally, like this type of, these traits or these notions or ideas kind of fit more with, you know, what I might want to experience in the future or do, you know, next steps?
Yeah, definitely. It definitely made me reflect. I mean, as an incoming freshman to college, it made me choose what I wanted to do in college and what I wanted to do.
Okay, go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I think that's part of, I guess, just to echo this again, that's kind of what's nice about the project, is that when you're picking your artifacts, I think you're understandably picking things that are important to you, like things you're especially proud of. So it's kind of cool when you're looking back and you're thinking, you know, what projects am I especially proud of? And typically the things that you want to carry on in the future. It's like, for example, I remember that I was having a lot of trouble finding out what to put in for my balanced healthy human being strand. until eventually I kind of decided, you know, I really got into weightlifting during high school. Let me put in a video of me bench pressing, like some milestone, and put that in there. And it's kind of things like that it doesn't have to be this big, you know, career aspiration, although part of that for me was, you know, my passion for environmental injustice. It's also small things like hobbies, like, you know, I like going to the gym. I've devoted a lot of time going to the gym and weightlifting, even though I don't particularly look like it. And so it's just things like that you can take to the future that you only really realize are significant to you or not significant to you when you reflect and do the part of something. I think that's, again, a real value.
Great, thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely. As a mom of one of our students here, of course.
One of the students, and so now I've been through the college application process with 2 kids, and also I used to interview kids for my alma mater. I did that for 25 years. And I think one of the things that the kids always struggle with when it comes to the college application process is this question of overcoming adversity, which is one that, you know, a lot of the kids in Wilton don't necessarily think about in a deliberate manner, because there might not be like an obvious adversity that they have to overcome. I just wonder if it could be added to the project in some way, that aspect
Great
that
question.
they start thinking deliberately about times in their lives where they've overcome issues. It doesn't have to be, you know, extreme poverty or whatever. You know, because I know when I used to ask kids this question in the interview, their, you know, faces would go blank.
Sure.
It was like, I didn't get picked to be the captain of the lacrosse team or whatever, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good pragmatic point, and that's a question they all have to.
And it's embedded
Yeah.
in the attributes. So there's a couple of attributes that actually speak to overcoming adversity.
Mhm.
So it would be a matter of looking at that
Just tying it,
and
yeah.
basically focusing on that
Tying
part of
it in.
description of
Yeah.
that attribute.
Yeah, we'll take that feedback
Yeah.
back to the design team. That's great.
I would say one of the things our committee's been really thinking about and reflecting on, we've heard a lot of this from the students, is where they're gonna work on this. It's advisory, our whole goal there was for them to build more connections with their groups and with their advisors. But we now have a commitment from our English department in their 11th grade year to kind of retool, and a lot of our kids take an expository writing course, and that is largely setting up their college essays, so that would be a really good point for them to bring in that adversity lens as well, because that often is part of that essay. So it's a really great point that we can bring back to English Bible school.
I just think it's one in particular that Wilton students, like,
Yeah, she's right.
You're in the headlights.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good, well, thank you. And students, thank you.
Thank
You don't
you.
have to stay for the rest of the meeting. I know you have many other things to do. Yeah, we appreciate it.
Thank you guys very much.
Great.
Okay.
Cider Mill.
Cider Mill schedule. Jen and Dave, you want to come up to the table? Whatever more comfortable for you. If you want to come closer or whatever. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So, Fran can bring up the slide deck?
Mhm. I think that would be helpful. Yep.
We'll start. So, again, this is just an update. We had a chance to present to our PTA last week, or the week before, maybe even at this point. So what we're going to just do tonight is share with you the revisions. And I know 3 of you were able to join us, so I thank you for that. And then we can answer questions at the end. All right, so I'm going to turn over to Dave, and then visually we'll hold off on the actual schedules and stuff like that.
Two-factor authentication.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest, honestly, garnering the feedback from parents and faculty, the biggest piece that we noticed was just how short the time was that people were concerned with. So going from 100 minutes average every 2 weeks down to 75 minutes average weekly with 15 minutes every day is what we had. And people were concerned, one, with the 15 minutes being too short of a time, and two, with the 15 minutes taking place in the middle of the science and social studies block. So we looked at it and making some adjustments, we increased the time to 30 minutes every 3 days a week. And that's kind of the biggest shift that you would see. The reason why we go 30 minutes 3 days a week is that's actually one of the recommendations from, I always get the acronym wrong, ACTFL.
ACTFL. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. It's they say 90 minutes over the course of the week is their recommendation for this age's world language. We were also able to still create a 80-minute block of math one time a week. So in order to get it to up the time from 75 minutes to 90 minutes, we did have to take away one of those 80-minute blocks. So we're not going to have 2 long math blocks per week, but we would have 1 long math block per week, and then all the other math blocks would still be 60 minutes a week. Writing is still 60 minutes, reading is still 60 minutes, and math and lunch are still 30 minutes apiece. So we're still able to have those 30 minutes lunch blocks and the 30-minute recess blocks. We're still doing the Monday through Friday schedule with it. When we look at time, science and social studies in the version 1 was 170 minutes. In version 2, it actually went up to 190 minutes. You have 3 times 30 minutes a week, and then you have 1 times 40 minutes a week, and 1 times 60 minutes a week for a full hour-long block there. And then world language went from 75 minutes a week, which was 5 times 15. It was at daily 15 minutes, up to 3 times 30 minutes for 90 minutes. So it increased by 15 minutes or 20%. Other than that, the specials remained the same. Reading, writing, word study all remained. Reading and writing remained the same, and then lunch recess remained the same. We were able to meet with teachers again to review that kind of change. We garnered some feedback from them. We're looking at the prep and IET time. There is a little bit of concern there, and we're working with them to figure out the best to ensure that the shorter prep day, that short prep isn't just time to run and go get their kids, but they actually can use it for time. So there are some things that were in the works on that. We also spoke with some 4th graders just related to the longer math block this year, to hear kind of their own voice, and they gave us some good feedback. Let me just pull that up. One of them had explained that the year's been going well, and he actually preferred the length of math because of how much he enjoys math. And it makes me think, 1, that it's a great program, but 2, you can just leave it there and I'll tell you. Oh, just keep scrolling down. 1, it makes it look like it's a really good program, but 2, I think it also speaks to the ability to go in depth in the program, which one of our students even said. This year it just seems like we're learning math and we actually have time to learn math. And when I prodded that a little bit, he talked about last year, yeah, he was able to do well in his 3rd grade math, but this year they seem to be going deeper and deeper into it. It wasn't all positive. One student did say the length of time is okay. He wished it was a little bit shorter. He said that in the last 15 minutes or so, he gets distracted and he can lose focus. But to his credit, I said, okay, so tell me what happens what do you do when that happens? He goes, oh, I just asked the teacher to go get some drink of water, and then I come right back in and I'm able to be refocused. Which, personally for me, when we talk about self-directed, self-navigated learners, that's kind of what we want. We want that intuition, we want that own metacognition of a kid to recognize when he's losing focus and to say, hey, listen, I need to take a break. And then he's able to get back to it right away. I asked him about last year, if last year was better, if the shorter time was better. He said no. And I said, oh, what time would be better? He goes, right around an hour is his kind of prime time, which is what our blocks would be. So we were able to kind of talk with them. We were able to talk with the teachers. And like I said, I think the biggest shift in this is that we aren't doing 15 minutes. We're doing 3 by 30 for world language instead. I was able to talk with one of the world language teachers about it, and she was much more happy with 3 by 30 minutes, saying that the time actually gives them time. She felt like it actually gives them time to be in the class and do the content area curriculum over time.
So I went to the meeting, and I agree with the schedule and the blocks and what you're trying to do in terms of learning. I was unclear whether the world language, when you talked about it being in a social studies context, I'm unclear about what that looks like.
Okay, so two different things. So the concept of what the curriculum is for world language is, obviously it's connected to, it's our school, right? But it's actually not connected to our schedule, right? So I think there's been a lot out kind of on social media that they're kind of conjoined, they're not. So the content area, the shift to content area is from a curriculum review, and we're working on that with Chuck and through the teachers. So it is, I think, a very positive thing as we think about cohesive instruction and for our students. We're trying to actually get to where we have a lot of more transdisciplinary learning, and so this lends itself to that. So the idea is that the vocabulary that will anchor some of the instruction will come from science and social studies. It'll still be about dialogue, oral language will be a huge primary goal.
So they're going to learn French through a social studies lens or a science lens.
Well, there's always vocab, right? In any kind of language, there's vocabulary. So a lot of it's going to be anchored into some of the science and social studies vocabulary.
So the way this is going to work, I want to be clear, they're not teaching the science and social studies units. They're taking some vocabulary and concepts from those science and social studies units and then developing their own units that address the standards for world language. Can I show you one?
Yes.
That might help?
Yes.
That would help.
So on the desktop, there's a PDF. See that up here?
Yeah.
So this is a unit from New Canaan. I don't know if we can make that
Yeah,
bigger.
I was just looking for that.
Plus
Control
sign.
plus. Oh, plus.
There you go. So this is something that the World Language Coordinator in New Canaan shared with me. So this is a third grade unit. It's called the Geografía Personal, Spanish third grade novice, right? You can read the introduction, but what you'll notice if you scroll down a little bit, this is a unit top. So some of the sentence structures are the same that they're learning now. My name is, I am, plus occupations. So they're still learning all of the same things, but they're pulling some of the vocabulary and concepts from social studies and science. You know, I don't want to get too technical here, but when you look at second language acquisition, there are basically two different types of buckets that you look at. One are called BICs, and the other are called CALPs. BICs are basic interpersonal communication skills. CALPs are cognitive academic language proficiency skills. BICs, basic interpersonal, hi, how are you? My name is, I live here, you can read a menu. Those things come to kids fairly quickly, in about a year. The cognitive academic ones take as much as 5 to 6 years for kids to acquire. So what we're doing here is we're trying to meld the two. We're not choosing BICs over CALPs, and that's something of the narrative that I've been hearing, and that's not accurate. They will still be learning all of the basic interpersonal communication skills that they did before. They will still be learning all of the communications. All we're doing is making connections to other curricular areas. And in fact, one of the standards in world language is to make connections to other subject areas. So, does that help, Pam?
Yes, it does.
So the social studies has a biography for New Canaan social studies. There's a biography unit in social studies. What their world language people did is that they took that biography unit and started pulling some of the vocabulary and concepts from that, and then developed their own unit that would allow them to address both BICs and CALPs. You know, we have to think about our students. We would love all of our students to attain the seal of biodiversity, right? in order to get there, we have to start introducing some of the academic language earlier. And in fact, it's gonna stick for the kids much better. I read that to you the last time when we discussed this. Because they have a background knowledge in social studies, there's prior knowledge that it can stick to what they're learning in world language, right? So we're kind of providing them with a richer experience to learn the language, but it's also preparing them for the things that we want them to do in high school.
And so this was a result of the curriculum review that happened
In 2016, and we revisited it in 2018.
Okay.
So at that point, in 2018, you just, because none of us were around then,
Yes.
you did the curriculum review and then presented back to the board, these are the changes we want to make to the curriculum.
We've never done that here. It's usually within the curriculum review committee that those recommendations are made.
Okay.
So I'm just curious why this wasn't implemented earlier.
So we did go to New Canaan, we visited, we talked with New Canaan, we did develop pilot units. They implemented them. You know, it's hard to push things too hard, and then the pandemic hit. So when Jen decided to do this change in her schedule, they're not directly linked, but it gave us a good opportunity to go back and say, we need to revisit this and move forward.
I know there's a number of events that occur around world
Yes.
language. Will they be compromised in this
I don't believe
setting?
so.
Will it be time for them?
Oh, yes. We'll make sure there's.
And there are some events that have always taken longer in past years, so we would do the same thing. In the past, we've had like full day kind of like events that kids cycle through in our lovely South Gym gym. So, you know, it'll depend on what events come along, but I do not think that's gonna act.
You might transform some of those experiences. We'll make sure. Now, one of the strands is learning about culture.
Right. Can you comment if you think that this change will better prepare students as they go to Middlebrook, or will it
No,
have an
that-
adverse
that-
effect?
that we wouldn't do this if we didn't think it would be better for them.
And to what means, how?
I
More
believe-
exposure, or?
I believe that the students will achieve a greater level of proficiency. So the way we assess the efficacy of our program is through our assessments. Right? We use the APPLE, which is based upon the ACFA standards. Right now, the kids are getting to, I think, novice, mid-novice. I'd like to see them either high novice or even low intermediate. So I anticipate that that's the direction that we will go, because I truly believe this is the way to go. And the consultant that we used, that was her primary recommendation, is that the FLES is foreign language in the elementary school, that our FLES program become content-based.
And then, do they have their own classrooms? Is that still?
So, yeah, I tried to clear that up at the PTA meeting. So we've never had language classrooms across the board. Sometimes French has been able to keep a classroom because they've had, 3 teacher desks in a room, and French was so small that they've been able to like use their office as a classroom. This year we had 3 out of 4 start because we had a room open up. But I think I explained to the board that regardless of the schedule, we were going back on carts anyways because this has not been effective for our kids traipsing across the school. It just has not been efficient. So again, this is regardless of schedule change, that was going to be a shift. We were going back to having carts anyways.
So they're gonna take a cart into.
Which they've done in the past, yeah.
Into a classroom.
Yep.
And then teach the lesson and then take the cart away.
I have
And
to
again,
say, that
that's
was always
been-
my experience as a principal, that that's how we handled it. I know that how it's done in New Canaan as well.
It's just out of curiosity, New Canaan has the content-based
Yes.
instruction. How many years have they been?
Many, many years.
Doing it
Now,
that way.
The coordinator there did share with me that during the pandemic,
Mhm.
they were required to actually teach the science and social studies units.
Okay.
So they are trying to go back.
Okay.
And she's expressed some interest in us partnering to to move this work forward, so.
Yeah.
And
And-
Greenwich also, the pandemic got them away from doing content, so they were all trying to
Work their way back a bit. And do they do science and social studies content, just social studies content?
I believe in New Canaan it's just social studies.
Okay.
In Greenwich, at least when I was there, it was both science
And social studies. Okay, so both those content areas are a general kind of cross-curricular match for.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this book, which is kind of the Bible for world language, gives some wonderful examples from both science and social studies,
Mhm.
content-based units.
Yeah. Yeah. 'Cause I think that, I think any type of change is always
It's hard.
hard. And I think that there are some things that are recognizable and loved about our world language program, and would like to, see those complemented and not augmented to some extent. So I think that, like the example, and working through that and perhaps making that, if New Canaan is willing to let us make that more broadly available or to share that, we could we can ask and find out, because I think that helps kind of quell that nervousness a bit, because it's hard conceptually
Yeah.
to
Why don't
yeah.
I also share some of the descriptive units? That's a very technical document
Yeah.
that I think is for,
Okay.
essential understandings and enduring them.
Yeah.
But in here, they don't have it in that format, they just have descriptions of units. And
Yeah.
I'll send that to you, and that we can share.
Yeah, and I think that might.
have a feeling they're not gonna want me to
No,
share.
that's fine. I mean, if you, or just something, and even if it's less technical, I think that's better, something that
Yeah.
just kind of like helps, parents and kids kind of wrap their arms a bit about like what that content shift
Yeah.
looks and feels like.
And
Yeah.
wonderful descriptions in here, I can give you
Yeah.
multiple examples.
Yeah, I think that would be really great.
Sure.
Thank you.
Are we gonna go back to the presentation, or we
Whatever you want.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Chuck, I think you might have hit on it before, but some of the feedback we've been hearing is just some of the, besides just the core learning that's happening, but the cultural immersion during these world language classes.
Yeah.
So, is the idea that part of it will still remain because of the tie to the social studies
Yes,
content?
I think keep in mind that social science involves anthropology, which is the study of culture. And we start studying culture in kindergarten. So this will provide opportunities to make connections between what the kids are learning in terms of culture in the United States to culture in Mexico, to culture in South America. So that's the melding of the units. They will take, I'm sure, did they do units on Mexico? I think probably, maybe in Puerto Rico, and actually
I
there's
wouldn't
a
say
unit
separate
in here
units,
on
but yes.
Puerto Rico that can show you how we can make those work together. Because again, understanding culture is one of the standards that we have to address in world language.
So in terms of, just so I understand the role of the board here, we're concerned with the schedule change and not the curriculum change, because the curriculum is from the curriculum review, is that?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a recommendation from the curriculum review committee,
That
but
we
our
could-
role here is, lots of schedule changes happen all the time, the way schools organize themselves. This is, from the board, curriculum is under the purview of the, curriculum changes are under the purview of the board. So that's the area that we're.
Schedule changes or not.
Right. Schedule changes when they have, if they have a curriculum impact, it's that impact that we look at. But it's.
But to be clear, this schedule is separate. We could run this schedule and have the same curriculum we ran this year or not, dependent on each other. We think it would be better, because, with it more integrated, but I just want to be clear about that, because somehow they got very tied together, and we could run the exact same curriculum we ran this year in world language, it just wouldn't match what the recommendations are.
And I would just add, we are taking a slight decrease in science and social
Yeah.
studies,
Yeah.
right? So I think this is a good opportunity to reinforce some of the concepts from science and social studies and world language together. That's really the beauty of transdisciplinary learning, is that you don't have to have these siloed times. We can address the same thing at the same, two things at the same time.
I'm just having flashbacks to when I learned French as a, however, back in the dark ages. And, you know, I learned how to say, hello, my name is, what's your name? This is what I like to do. This is who my family is.
Did you look at that unit? That's exactly what they were doing within the context of an autobiography.
And Chuck, I just want to go back to what you touched on, you know, there was a decrease in science and social studies, and I think it was about six years or so ago, where we took a big chunk away. No, it was before the pandemic.
The only time I recall was we did take one unit away in social studies.
Oh, units, but not, we didn't.
No, but we did repurpose that time for unfinished learning.
Yeah, I just remember when my kids were there, and I don't
We still have
know what you think about me, but.
45 minutes, I don't think it's ever been more than 45 minutes.
Yeah, I recall having a decrease in the exposure to social
So one year, we had 2 units instead of 3 units, and we made that change 1 year, but that was like a temporary accelerated learning
Right.
shift that we're not doing.
We're back to 3 units.
Yeah, we're back. And that again, wasn't a schedule change or anything, it was just, condensing for that 1 year.
So there was never a class with social studies and a class with science, it was always combined?
You mean 2 separate periods? So one
Yeah.
period of a science and one period
As
of
long as
social
I've
studies?
been
no.
here, we've had one period,
And alternate.
we do units, so we would do a social studies unit, then a science unit, then a social studies unit, then a science unit. It was in the same block.
Okay.
And this new version 2.0, it only reduces science and social studies by 10 minutes over the course of average over the course of the week.
Yeah, I was very pleased to see that.
So it's not as drastically reduction.
Yeah,
And
and-
there's also less disjointedness because the teacher will always guarantee at least 30 minutes of continuous instruction rather than having a 15-minute interruption.
No, the girls were here when we condensed after, right after.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm hopeful for opportunities now that we have some of the more dedicated, you know, English and writing blocks to have some cross interdisciplinary work done as well in terms of, you know,
I mean, our
With the-
long-term goal would be to have
Completely transdisciplinary.
yeah.
blocks that, I mean,
Yeah.
they're laughing at me.
Yeah.
But that would be our
STEM and
goal.
humanities.
This is just like a step.
STEM and humanities, like 2 blocks, yeah. Like working towards
Which
that,
would be,
yeah.
I like
you know,
Yeah.
it would be fabulous
Yeah.
for our kids and,
Yeah.
you know, I hope we can get us there.
There are steps along the way.
There are steps along the way, so this is one step towards it.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
I think this is a really positive thing.
Yeah,
But
I
wanna
mean,
be clear, they're not dependent on
yeah,
each other, some
no,
of us all got.
I definitely think that, you know, the idea of slowing down the school,
Yes.
giving teachers the ability to have more time allotments to be able to be more creative or move with the needs of their class as that may dictate itself would definitely be a positive thing. I think we definitely have this artificial separation of K2 and 3-5, and sometimes I think
That's right.
3-5 kind of gets pushed up to be treated older than it might developmentally be appropriate for those kids, where if they were in a K5 setting in one building, it would be different. So I really think that this is positive for the kids
Yeah,
in
and
that
I hope
building.
that's what you guys have heard in the original presentation, we didn't go back and do
So
that.
this
So
is
the
part of
whole-
elementary.
Yeah.
Yes, the whole
And
goal
there's-
was
there's
to,
new
for
kind of
SEL.
Middlebrook schedule, it seems
Yeah.
to me, the two
Yeah.
main transitions.
And I do like the idea that it is possible that if for some kids now, if they have an IEP but so elect, they can be exposed to
It's appropriate.
if it's appropriate for them to the foreign language, the way the blocks work out, and the way
Yes.
with the 60-minute blocks you have 30-minute pull-out time, so it makes everything more manageable in that
We're
respect.
excited. I mean,
Yeah.
I think this is by far
Yeah.
a really
Yeah.
good move.
In the world of no schedule being perfect,
Yes.
this is, I think.
Without making more time, right? I feel
Yes,
like
without
this is
making
the
more
best,
time,
without
you know,
putting
in
more
the
time.
world of constrained resources with time and money, you can do, yes.
One of the other add-ons that were needed with this if kids would like to,
That's
they can
neat.
do, additional time during their recess.
Oh,
Not
so
all-
like-
Not all kids wanna go out to
Yeah.
recess, you talk about quality recess, and
Yeah.
kids' choice, so instead of just doing, music, art, and PE as potential options, they have the option for additional music or additional French or Spanish
Yeah.
as well.
And do the kids who, when they go to Middlebrook, are they able to choose which language they, again, they can change so I'd be interested in, just curious of a percentage number, or if we would track the change rate. Yeah.
Do you have a
I don't
sense of
know
that?
it's encouraged, but I
Yeah.
think it's.
Is it just, is it
Is that right? I would say
minimal?
it's a non-negotiable.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's just me guessing.
Okay. Yeah, I was just,
I don't think it's encouraged.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether you have a written rule that you can't switch.
Okay.
So it's even a challenge to switch within our school. We try to encourage a little more flexibility, but that's been hard sometimes for
Okay.
the teachers.
One of the recommendations here is that kids should be exposed to as many languages as possible. So if we are not providing that option, I think we should revisit that.
oh, okay.
That's 33 languages. Can't speak any of them.
What's the rough breakdown of kids that choose Spanish to French?
It's mainly Spanish.
Yeah, yes. I will say that in the last year, 2 years, French has definitely been increasing. Mrs. Cameron's put a lot of time and effort into
Sure.
growing the program.
Yeah.
But still,
If there's 3 language teachers, is it about 1/3 French, 2/3 Spanish?
Depends on their grade.
Yeah.
Because this year our third grade has a lot more French speakers than what we've had in the past, which is making some of our French classes a little bit larger, but we're using those numbers to anticipate how to kind of structure classes next year to ensure that, the language classes are still small, definitely manageable. And I think it's also important to remember too, the teachers are gonna be in these world language classes. So that's a really cool component to it, because then they can also tie the science and social studies into the world language, just like the world language is a language in the science and social studies.
Oh, that's,
Will the outcomes of the change be measured?
Yes, we did the assessment of fifth grade.
Okay.
Now, I'm not sure we will see the first year. I think the student who goes through third, fourth, and fifth grade has a better chance of really seeing a significant difference. I'm not sure our fifth graders with 1 year, I'm not sure. But we will be monitoring.
Right. They'll have unit assessments along
Yes,
the
they
way,
will have
right? So they'll
unit
have all the
assessments.
curriculum-based assessments. So there'll be plenty of opportunities to check in, through the first year for sure. So next steps are, you've got, so that you feel like you're locked in with a schedule model that makes sense. We've had lots of questions. We maybe have a few more.
staffing is just our last thing.
Yep, which we'll iron that out in the next week or so. And then in terms of the unit development, is that going to take place this summer?
Starting with the spring.
Yes. we
Okay,
start
great.
this spring, in the summer, and probably throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
As they implement units, we reflect on it, and make some changes moving forward.
Great. And you'd mentioned the last meeting too that you thought the New Canaan Public Schools were interested in a partnership. Do you
Yeah,
have,
so
what's
we're
that going to look like?
So we're actually going over to visit at the end of April, so that the teachers can actually see it in action.
Mhm.
then. And there is at least one new teacher that I think needs to see it in action. At that point, we have an appointment to discuss what that could look like. And I think it's going to be around unit development.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
So overall, just what was, I know you mentioned some specific examples, but the feedback now on 2.0 from all the world language teachers is positive.
So I was able to speak with one of them. I haven't been able to speak to all three.
One has been out.
Yeah, we had some absences there. When I spoke with the one, though, they were much happier with 30 minutes. Just because, again, the length of time seems to be a lot more conducive to being able to get hold of people quickly and content.
And again, it's still a loss of time, right? 10 minutes over the course of a week, so not really, but for that. But again, we, as looking at the whole thing, not just world language, right? We believe this is the best schedule
That's what they recommend.
Yeah. I'm just saying, it's
Yes.
like, you're asking if they're happy.
No, yeah, there's always
I mean,
trade-offs. I mean,
yeah, they're not.
we just did it for
yeah.
3 months. We know there's trade-offs, so there's
Yeah,
no perfect
there's trade-offs.
situation.
And I'm confident that this is the right choice for our kids, and this is a much more student-centered schedule. And so taking in all of the aspects, I'm happy, and I do believe that once we get through the change is hard, and so a lot of this is around kind of a shift. It's the two things, right? It wasn't just the time, right? It's this shift in curriculum too that we're going through. I think it'll sort itself.
And we're thinking very hard and we're making sure that we support the teachers as they make the shift.
Any other questions for Chuck or Jen at the moment?
Okay.
I don't mean to put anybody on or Dave. I don't mean to put anybody on the spot. So thank you, everybody. We look forward to getting those additional sheets. That would be really helpful.
Yes.
And yes, thank you very
And
much.
if anybody
Yeah.
wanted to create a Q&A that has a lot of information, I
Yeah.
don't know if you guys got a copy
Mhm.
of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm happy to
Yeah.
answer any questions. as they
Okay,
come.
great. Thank you so much.
The most recent version of the presentation also has the week by week for grades 3 to 4.
Oh, it does have the great 3, 4, and 5. You know what? Maybe perhaps when Chuck has his photocopies or PDFs made or whatever, we can just send everything out again in one big, communication.
I'm sorry, what was the last thing?
Oh, when Chuck is gonna put together some of the units, so
Oh,
we can see
yes.
what they look like, and then we can have one communication that has the updated PowerPoint and Q&A and those materials too, so everything can be in one place.
Good. All right.
Okay.
Next.
Moving on to increasing education diversity recruitment plan. That's a
Yes, it is.
Maria.
That fast 3 times.
No, thank you.
So I have 3 items on the agenda tonight, and the first is just a notification about the increasing educator diversity plan. To let the board know that we are required by Public Act 23-167, Section 10, to submit an increasing educator diversity plan. So I will be presenting that to the board on April 11th. This plan outlines best practices in recruitment, hiring, and retention of all staff, but also with the hopes of increasing the diversity within our district for staff. So I will be presenting on April 11th. I hope that you can review the plan, ask any questions, and hopefully approve it, because we are required to submit that plan. And once it's approved by the state, we are required to implement it beginning July 1.
Okay. So we have to implement by July 1.
Yes.
Well, get it hopefully approved April 11th.
Yes.
Okay, and that gives you enough time
To submit it?
to submit it and get everything?
Yes, once it's submitted.
Okay.
Then the state gets back to us by mid-May.
Okay.
With any revisions that they're recommending, and then we would resubmit it for resubmission and the
Okay. Any questions for Maria? Thank you. There'll be time for public comment at the end. No, I'm sorry, we have to stick to the agenda. Yep.
We'll be done in a few minutes. So, yeah, just hang in there.
Review and discuss food services.
Great. So I'm happy to provide an update on food services as part of my role. I oversee the Nutrition and Wellness Committee, and I have engaged more closely with Chartwells in recent years, partly due to our triennial assessment, which we engaged in last year. We surveyed the parents, the staff, and the students about a variety of topics, including food service in this community. And so that's really the lens through which I'm going to be providing this update. It's just what is the experience for students, what are our offerings, and how do those align with our commitment to ensuring that we are supporting the wellness and the nutrition of our students. I want to start by saying, maybe stating the obvious, but we really care very deeply about nutrition and the experience that our students are having in the cafeteria. And as we reviewed the feedback from the surveys, we noticed a number of themes. some of you may recall, maybe parents in the district may recall that, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, we went off of the federal school lunch program, K through 8. We had not been on it at the high school because, we had a wider variety of options. And the hope, K through 8, was that that would give us more flexibility. Getting to that level of flexibility was impacted by the pandemic. So we were just moving in that direction. All of the schools shut down, and then when we returned, as you may recall, cafeterias looked different when we came back. We were on partial, enrollment during the week where we were on those hybrid schedules. Students couldn't eat in the cafeterias necessarily, or they were very spread out. And so what was offered in those spaces was different. We also had supply chain issues. So even coming out of the pandemic, we were seeing the lingering effects on our school cafeterias. And another thing I think that impacted what was being offered in the cafeterias was, Chartwell's efforts to try to get kids back in, maybe not always in the best ways. Maybe offering snacks and foods that are appealing to kids, but not really healthy for them and not necessarily appealing to parents. So we've worked really closely with them over the past year to set parameters around what they can offer. And I'm pleased to report that we have a number of changes that have been put in place and are continuing to be put in place. So they've removed prepackaged muffins, which were in all of our cafeterias, and these muffins have a lot of sugar in them, which are really popular for kids and maybe easy to put out, but not the kinds of things that we'd like to see right now.
It's essentially cake.
Our former culinary arts guru.
Yeah.
Delicious.
Also removing a lot of the calorie-dense snacks and fried chips, particularly at our lower schools, with a move toward fewer calorie-dense options, more low-calorie and baked things. If you think about snacks, popcorn and pretzels versus fried potato chips. A move toward more homemade options, thinking yogurt parfaits rather than Jell-O and pudding. We've been working to reconfigure our food displays so that accessing vegetables and fruits is easier for kids and is more second nature. And that's been a bit of a process, I'll be honest, but Chartwell's knows that we're really committed to that. And we also see it as an opportunity to teach kids how to build a healthy and complete meal. If it's all there and it's intuitive, it's reinforcing what we're teaching in classes and what we're teaching at home. So they have demonstrated a willingness to move in that direction, and we're happy to see that. I think moving forward, we have a commitment to meet with them regularly, to continue to monitor the options. We want to see more scratch-made items in our cafeterias. We also want to work towards offering more organic items because that was feedback that came from the survey. Some of it is supply chain, that they're still working through, but we're also wanting to explore the option of working with local farms to bring things in, and possibly, maybe not right now, but in the future, we want to look at utilizing our school gardens better and differently because there's a real opportunity there. So that's really the update that I have for now. It's a work in progress. It's not perfect, but we are really committed to it, and we're working so closely with Chartwell's to hold them accountable and make sure that our cafeterias reflect the values of this group.
So tangential to Chartwell's, my school bucks. So I know that it's like just an off-the-shelf product and what most people use, but I noticed that there's like an increase of almost $1 surcharge. So now it's almost like $3, I think, per kid every time you add money to their account. So if we could explore that and looked into it, because I believe it used to be $2.25. It's a service fee,
that they just
and
Per transaction.
they just increased it per transaction. But per transaction means per kid, because I add money to all 3 of my kids at the same time, but I don't get charged $3 and change. I get charged $9 and change. But I only give them my credit card number once. So
That is something that we're looking into.
Okay.
Dr. Smith and I had a discussion about that, and I've been reviewing what other school districts are using and what other things are available out
Yeah.
there.
fantastic.
So we are looking
Yes,
into it.
thank you. I
And
appreciate it.
And they cap the amount of money you can put in at one time.
Yeah.
Oh, that's.
So the incentive should be, you
That's
do it
right.
once,
Right.
and
Yeah.
cap it at $100, so you're paying 3.5% it's now on a credit card.
Yeah.
You're paying $250 for a bank transfer, which
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
work in the payments industry. That transaction costs less than $1.
Sure.
So somebody's
Yeah.
making a lot of money.
Yes.
And I do know they rolled it out to other school systems because
Yeah.
at work, as soon as we came, we all started talking about it because we're payments nerds, and we were all commenting on it. So
Yeah, so I
Yeah,
know it's
yeah, they're
not just,
big in the
it's not a
marketplace.
Wilton special,
yeah.
but at the same time, yeah,
Well,
I
that's
think,
good feedback. And
yeah.
I think, the other thing that has come, from this is that we recognize that parents want more transparency with pricing.
Mm.
So we've been talking about how we can make the prices more visible to students and make it clearer what's included in hot lunch and what isn't. And also how we communicate that to parents. So we
Yeah.
want it at the point of sale where they can see, but also where parents at home can see how
Yeah.
much this costs.
Because I think if, at least for me, if I had it at home, I could, what may be an ineffectual budget conversation, but we could still have a budget conversation.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Do you want to move public comment?
Yeah,
Just to
we're-
help
and-
these folks
yeah.
out here?
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you,
Um,
I'm sorry,
Oh,
can
no,
I just
go
ask
ahead.
you one more
Yes,
question?
of course.
Yeah.
Do you have, do we have contractual agreements with Chartwells where they have
Yes.
to adhere to some of these policies?
Yeah.
And are there penalties if they do not?
Well, so one of the things that we've talked about is going back to our contract and actually adding things to it. So some of the things that we'd like to see aren't necessarily in the contract, but we do have for future years the flexibility to add them in, and we've actually talked about that as a strategy to hold them more accountable to these things.
Yeah, and I realize I've had a number of conversations with their upper level management at this point, and they've received very candid feedback and have been responsive. And so, I think we're moving to a better place pretty fast.
When's the contract up for renewal?
At the end of this year.
Because last time there was no other bidder.
Yeah, I think it's an annual rolling.
Yeah, we could extend it, or we could go out to bid.
Any other questions on food services? We're going, I'd like to, a motion at the table if possible to move public comment up to this point in the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Lori. Is there a second? Thank you, Pam. All in favor? Okay. Public comment.
Sure.
You're welcome.
Yeah, go ahead and sit.
Go ahead, sit.
Okay, since neither of my two children are going to start, I'll start. So first, I just want to say, I'm in no way opposed to change. So this is in regards to the change in schedule first, I don't know. I'm actually a huge proponent of change, and I love challenging the status quo. I'd actually like to see that in a lot of our other curriculum versus seeing worksheets that come home for writing language samples. But that being said, I'm just not sure that this change in world language is what our curriculum really needs. And the reason why I say that is because I have two children, and I've seen several other children. I've visited the classroom on many occasions that are exceptionally engaged in the way that our languages are being taught today. You have a miraculous, and I can only speak to the French teacher. My children haven't had Spanish. You have a miraculous French teacher in Ciderman. And I really think that by making this change of removing the classroom and by changing the curriculum to something that she is not in alignment with is going to be detrimental to the output and the outcome of her classroom. So I'd really like the board to contemplate why it is that we are considering a curriculum change that is not being recommended by the teachers that are currently in the school, by your subject matter experts. and why we're contemplating a curriculum that's been recommended some 7 years ago. You have some experts here today that are really talented, and we haven't seen any detrimental impact at all in our language programs that would call for or necessitate a radical change to the program, which I view this as being. So I'd really like to encourage the board to continue to ask questions and to get a further understanding from the existing teachers that are in the program and even from those that are in middle school and high school to get their point of view on whether or not this is the best path forward. It's certainly, in my experience, my mother's a language teacher, was a language teacher. I also speak 3 languages. I've lived in several countries. This is not the way to learn language. It's not the way that other countries that are exceptionally good at learning language, like the United States is not exactly the poster child for learning language. They don't do a content-based curriculum. They do an experience-based curriculum. And I've seen the benefit of that in the sense that children in particular, when you expose them to situations that they encounter every day and they learn language in that way, they absorb it more quickly, are enthusiastic to learn more, and will continue to develop as scholars later on in life. So those are my main points. I also just wanted to comment on the significant blocks of time in the schedule change. I really like the Board of Ed to take a look at and see whether or not we can contemplate how we might be able to shift some more time, maybe back to social studies and science and to world language, where we've given so much more time to the specials that are in the program. They've gotten a full hour block. It's much more time than they have today. It seems that it's misaligned with what I think our priorities should be as a school system. So I'd also ask that the board please contemplate and consider maybe relooking at that schedule. I like the block idea. I support it for sure. But how can we figure out to give more time to world language and to social studies and science, and not necessarily more language to our specialists?
So, based on...
I'm so sorry, I forgot to say, Michelle Martinez, 45 Clover Drive.
Hello, my name is Savannah Mulner. I live at 45 Clover Drive. And based on my middle school experience, I'd recommend that the Board of Ed ask administration to reconsider their World Language proposal. Being successful in middle school language arts requires knowing the fundamentals of the language, which is how to say hello, goodbye, your age, date, how you or someone else is doing, counting, and even having a brief discussion with someone. We are asked to state the day and month when we arrive every day in the classroom. In order to answer questions from the teacher or audience during projects and presentations, we must be familiar with and comprehend the fundamentals. I think a lot of the students who had French lessons with Madame Cameron would agree that she also seemed to be in good spirits and was really passionate about educating others, and had a great enthusiasm for language. She had catchy songs that taught us the names of months of the year, different ways to say hello and goodbye, and even how to count to 30. Knowing these fundamentals has come in handy numerous times, whether reading the date or simply saying hello and goodbye to my teacher. I have a ton of enjoyable memories from my time spent at 7 months. For instance, I recall having a big smile on my face on the proof day. I was ecstatic that we would get to spend a day like this in French class. Considering how much Madame Cameron enjoys teaching and how much she has taught me, she is simply one of the best teachers I've ever had. Her room and her phone posters that still make me smile to this day. I recall so much about them and being so excited to enter the room every time I had one language.
Hi, my name is Gabby. I live at 45 Clover Drive. French is what I'm looking forward every day. One reason why is because Madame is an energetic and motivated teacher with lots of kindness. She's very happy and excited. On top of that, she has a beautiful and creative mind. She puts a lot of effort into the classroom, and I have to say that it's the most decorative classroom I've seen. The classroom is one of the best parts about French. It brings French to life. excited because soon we will put on a fashion show. We get to dress up and walk the red carpet in crazy costumes after we learn how to talk about clothes. Please don't change French to learning about science and social studies. Like when you go to France or any other French-speaking country, you're not going to know what to say because everything you learn in French is social studies or science. Imagine you want to get breakfast in France and you want to the waiting room. Next minute's in your turn. You stand completely still and twitch your hands, not knowing what to say. That's when you say everything because you don't know how to pronounce it. But if we keep going on the same path without switching it to science, you can answer in full sentences and you wouldn't be afraid. Another reason why French is important is because you get to know its history and culture and a lot of other things. And most of why we like French is because of her classroom and celebrations, but most of all, her dad. I look forward to seeing her every world language day. Every day at school, world language is the best part of my day.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see if there's anything else.
Yeah.
Are there any other public comments?
Okay.
Okay.
You're back?
You're back.
I
School
never
security.
like to follow students.
Yeah, it was great.
So, another one of the hats that I wear is that I chair the District Emergency Operations Committee. And so, I'm happy to provide an update tonight on a topic that I think is on the minds of many always because of the world that we live in today, and also in light of a few of the incidents that have occurred in schools. So, I want to say that we approach this work, many of us, most of us, as parents first, and we embrace our responsibility, our primary responsibility, our first responsibility to preserve the safety and well-being of our students, both physically and social emotionally. And so we take this work incredibly seriously, and we have structures that we feel very good about in our district and in our schools. We have a district emergency operations team, and that district team is a broad-based team that includes members of our community, experts in our community, and it's designed that way. So we are lucky enough to have the chief of police, the deputy chief, the fire chief, who is also the emergency manager for the town. We have the Wilton Volunteer Ambulance Corps represented on that committee, and other community experts. In addition, we have building administrators from every building and other building representatives. We meet monthly, and those building representatives then take back that information and share it at the building level at their own building committees. So we have meetings that are going on all the time when we're talking about how we can be both proactive and responsive to emergency issues and potential emergency issues in the district. When we have incidents like the one that occurred in late January at Mount Driscoll and the one that occurred at Wilton High School just a few weeks ago, we take those as opportunities to think about what went well and how we can do better for next time. And so I just want the community to know that we never miss an opportunity to think about how we can reinforce our practices, but also how we can do things differently for next time. I want to highlight some of the training that members of our district have engaged in. We have the FEMA Incident Management All Hazards Training in place here. We have FEMA teams, incident command structure at every level of the organization, so those are in every building. We've had participation in the National Organization for Victim Assistance, CPR, APD, first aid, threat assessment, reunification training. Lots of different trainings are happening all the time. And we also provide annually training for all of our staff in our safety protocols and our standard response protocol, which you've heard a bit about through some of the notifications that have gone on recently. We have a lot of things that are standard. It's an extensive list, so I won't highlight everything, but just the fact that our exterior doors are locked really at all times, with the exception of that main entrance door that will get you into the vestibule, but not further than that, without someone buzzing you in, right? We have expanded significantly over the past 10 years the surveillance cameras across the district, both indoors and outdoors. We have alarms on a number of our exterior doors to prevent people from exiting where they shouldn't, or to prevent people from propping doors open where they shouldn't. We have two-way radios that improve our contact not just within the buildings, but also with emergency responders in the area. We adopt and annually revise our all hazards emergency operations plan. We submit that to the state. And we engage in regular drills, a variety of drills. You probably hear most frequently about our fire drills, but we include lockdown drills and a variety of other drills. As a result of this incident, we have reviewed our procedures. We have provided additional training, particularly at the high school, where we had our most recent incident. We've also talked a lot about the activation of the standard response protocol. And we've determined that at minimum, if we have a situation where there's a person in the building and we don't know where that person is and the person's not authorized to be there, at minimum we would go to a hold. And I want to, there's a bit of a nuance there because I think there have been questions about why it's just a hold and not a lockdown. And so that's why I want to highlight at minimum, okay? Because things could easily move right to a lockdown. But we want to err on the side of caution, at least with a hold. And there are, sometimes people don't know the protocols well enough to know that there are similarities between, and there are a lot of similarities between a hold and a lockdown. And I think another thing that has come from that most recent incident at the high school is that we have recognized that we have to promote more a culture of shared responsibility to activate the protocol, right? I think sometimes in an organization where you have different levels of leadership, there's a tendency to defer, right? I see something, I'm going to let an administrator know. And so our focus now is really working with all staff to let them know that there's a shared responsibility that anyone can activate the standard response protocol at any time. And so our focus has shifted to letting people know that we encourage it, we support them. If someone errs on the side of activating the protocol and we find out after the fact it's not necessary, that is okay because we want to err on the side of caution. And so we're having conversations at the buildings about how people would do that. Would you do that from your classroom? How would you do it from your classroom? What if you're in the hallway? How would you, so really engaging in those kinds of conversations so that people feel empowered and prepared should they need to activate the protocol at some time. And then in process kinds of things, the passive surveillance opportunities that we have with our pass key doors, so putting that into place so that we have another layer of passive surveillance. I think one of the major changes that we've decided to make is to engage in regular tabletop exercises at the district committee level so we can think about just novel situations that might require different responses. I think we're really good at practicing the typical drills and responding to typical scenarios, but really broadening the conversation to look at novel situations and including that as part of our regular practice. So that's a big change that we're making for our very next meeting and for all meetings thereafter. And then another thing that I want the board and the community to know is we recognize the need for families to have clear communication as soon as possible. Because the lack of communication, I think, feeds the fear that people just come to each day with naturally because of the world that we live in. And so we're really committed to looking at ways to try to get information out that is accurate as quickly as possible, knowing that our first responsibility is to respond to the event and make sure that we are managing the students and staff in our building and their needs. But we recognize that maybe an unmet need or a not fully met need in the community is to have information quickly. So that's something that we are working on through our protocols and our processes. So I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
Maria, it might be helpful if you could just define, what is a hold, but more important to me.
Is that not shelter in place?
what's the interaction with first responders when that happens? Does that automatically trigger that police show up at the school if there's a hold or a
Yes.
lockdown, or is there a difference between those two?
Yes, yeah, so if we go into a hold, we would notify the police that we're doing that. Same thing with a lockdown. Really, I would say most protocols, all protocols, we would do that. We work don't forget we have 2 SROs that are on site, right? So they're communicating that.
What's an SRO?
A school resource officer,
Okay.
right? And so when we had that incident at the high school, just a few weeks ago, we had our high school SRO who's assigned here, and then Elise Ackerman, who's assigned to the other schools on site, within minutes immediately. So and again, we have a variety of ways to communicate that. So it really depends on how the response is triggered. We have these alertus boxes, which are sort of their emergency alert buttons that are in strategic places throughout the building. So if that activates a lockdown, the police have access to them at the police department. They actually have the same system, which notifies them where the lockdown is. They have access to all of our cameras.
That's right.
So they're able to log in and see things in real time. We have the UASI radios, which is a radio that works on a different frequency that is only accessible to emergency responders, not just in the area, but across the state. So that is part of our protocol, and it's just a matter of how we're activating it. But we also have the SROs on site who may be notifying the police department. So it just depends on the situation and how we're activating it.
And there's SROs at every school, or do they move
We have
around?
2 in the district.
Okay.
One is primarily focused here, and the other is spread across the 3 buildings. But I think I also want to be clear that there is interest in the parent community to have 1 SRO per building. And it's a conversation that we continue to have. And I think, we evolve as a district in terms of our protocols. The recommendation up until this point has not been to expand that, because it's not so much about having the SRO in sight as it is what the response time from the police department is. And our police department is really minutes away from all of the buildings. So should there be an emergency event that requires law enforcement on site, they're really within minutes of each of the facilities. And they've drilled things like that. Now, we have conversations too about what's the quickest, that you could get in, what's the shortest amount of time. They're not drilling it necessarily with their sirens on, because there are other potential issues with doing things like that and disrupting the town. But it's really within minutes, and they feel confident and comfortable with that. Now, with that said, I again want to be clear, there are parents in this community that feel strongly about having an SRO on site, and I think it's a conversation that we just continue to have, that evolves. And if there's a point at which there's a feeling that we need to have more, we certainly will pursue it. But up until this point, the recommendation has not been to increase that.
And did the police have any recommendations? I'm sure the committee's met since. Did they have any did they have any other process recommendations, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the things that we talked about, the first was really the culture of shared responsibility and shared empowerment. I think, I don't want to misuse the word responsibility there, because I think everyone recognizes that it's their responsibility, but not everyone necessarily felt empowered to do it, right? So what does that look like in a real scenario? It doesn't necessarily mean going to find the administrator. It means taking immediate action. So that was one recommendation. Another was, again, to activate the protocol with a minimum of a hold and possibly more. And we all agreed.
Is the hold like a shelter in place?
The hold, yes. So basically the hold is
So
close
it's not
all of
the
the classroom
lockdown.
doors.
Right.
Right.
So it's a shelter in place, or how?
It's close all of the classroom doors, but business as usual within the classroom. The lockdown is everyone going to a classroom and there is no instruction that continues. That's really the primary difference. Is that in a hold, everyone is going into a classroom, but they're continuing their work in those classrooms. In a lockdown, everything stops, everything is silent. you're going to a corner where you can't be seen. And so, you know, you think about just levels of disruption to a school environment, much lower level of disruption of the whole than
Is the SRO at the high school the incident commander as well?
No. No, the incident commander is typically,
The principal.
But, you know, the police department has its own incident, the town has its own incident command structure. You know, the town, so, we work together, you know, in these situations, and I think, we are constantly evolving and looking to improve, and, what exists today in terms of our infrastructure and our resources doesn't necessarily mean that's where it ends. I think we're always looking to be better and expand and improve. And as parents and community members have recommendations, we are open to them, and we engage in thoughtful conversations, sometimes about the same topics, year after year, and that's okay, because sometimes there are new opportunities that we decide to pursue. One example of that is just the door alarms that we added to some of our doors in our buildings this year. That came after a conversation that we had, I believe after a PTA meeting in Driscoll, where some parents came forward with that question, and we revisited it and had it in place in some of our doors and decided to expand it to some others. So.
Any other questions for Maria? Well, thank you for keeping us and the community updated, and appreciate it. And glad to see that there's, you know, a continuous improvement process built in along the way too.
That's responsive to, and thank you for being so responsive to the feedback from parents.
Well, like, I mean, I think we all have the same goal. We want kids to be safe every day. And, you know, we're not, again, I think there are parents that would like to see more in place, and we continue to explore those ideas. But we all have the same goal, and we know sometimes that the disagreement that parents may have really comes from a place of fear because of the world that we live in. And, you know, we want kids to feel safe. We want parents to feel good about sending their kids to school every day. And we do feel like we have so many good things in place. And we go to, you know, many trainings around the state, and we're reminded about how much we have relative to other places that don't necessarily have those. Now, are we complacent with that and say, well, you know, we have more things in place than XYZ districts? No. But it is reassuring sometimes to go to these trainings and think, wow, you know, we're ahead in certain areas. Even, you know, with reunification materials that we have. We just recently went to a reunification training, and they're talking about how you put together plans and resources, and we have plans and resources in place. So that's another area we're going to continue to grow in as well. We're feeling like we have a lot of good things in place, and we just continue to expand.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the budget, next on the agenda was review and discuss the budget process. I just had this as a placeholder, just in case there was any anything new had happened since we put the agenda together. I do just want to let the board know that Board of Finance is meeting over Zoom tomorrow at 3:00, and the 5-year bonded schedule will be discussed.
So you have it in your materials.
And
Yeah.
you all have a copy of that in your materials, and it does reflect priority 1 facility needs that have been discussed with between Kevin and the town.
Yep, that's right. Yep, and so Jose's participated in that, and so you can see we took the, you know, the most critical issues, so that money is there, and I feel good about what's on the schedule and proposed for fiscal '25.
And then when this budget season is over and the first priority 1 round is set, we can come back together and have more of a meeting and discussion about the overall facilities plan for the next, you know, several years. Any other thoughts or comments on budget? Possible action items: discuss and approve completion of the Miller Driscoll building project. There's a
Right.
blast
So
from the past.
I know. We learned recently that the project was never officially closed out, and so what needs to happen here tonight, I've got a motion to read, and so the board just needs to vote and accept the project manager's recommendation that the project is closed out, and then that'll go to the town, and then the town can file with the state and certify that the project's been completed and receive the hopefully the last tranche of reimbursement. So I ask for a motion to accept Chris Burney, the Miller Driscoll Building Project Manager's recommendation that the renovation and new construction of Miller Driscoll School has been completed satisfactorily, and all of the requirements stipulated in the project's educational specifications have been met as prescribed in his memo dated March 19th, 2024, which you have. You also have Randall Luther's memo from 21 certifying that the project is complete. May I have a motion, please?
Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Pat. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries
Terrific.
unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, future business there and information items. March 2024 enrollment report is attached to your materials as well. The next Board of Education meeting is April 11th. We did talk about earlier, please holding that April 4th date for a special meeting workshop. In addition, the Board of Finance will be deliberating on the budget April 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. They have up to those 3 days to vote on budgets and the mill rate setting. And then we will be meeting again on April 25th. The annual town meeting, where the Board of Education will once again present its budget to the town, is on May 7th, with adjourned voting on Saturday the 11th. And then we will have a meeting again after that on May 9th. We already moved comments further up in the meeting tonight, so it is 9:18, and we will.
Time for, April 4th meeting?
We haven't said it yet, so it'll come out, but we'll do that the next day, but we're thinking between around 6:37. Okay. 9:19, meeting adjourned.
You're good. Good job.
Thanks
you,
everybody. Sorry, I went a little late tonight.
It was a lot.
Yep.
Is there money
Heather.
involved in